Okay, how's everybody doing this evening? My name is Kent, and the channel is Kent, Bitcoin Believer, Artificial Intelligence, AI. And I want to talk about something. I've been wanting to make this video for a while, and I want to make a video about the most profane, or the most, what would you say? The most disgusting word in the English language. A four-letter word, the most disgusting four-letter word in the English language. And that four-letter word is jobs, J-O-B-S. And I'm not talking about Steve Jobs. I'm talking about the jobs, things people do. They work at jobs. And I think it's one of the most disgusting words in the human language, because what a job is something that people don't think it is. In other words, people think that it's an opportunity for them to have an existence, but it isn't, and it hasn't been for a long time. So when I think about a job, what is a job? What does a job do? A job is you giving up your time to somebody else, and for that, you getting something in return, which is a place to live, transportation, security, things that will, make it so you can survive, so you can, so that you can. That's what a job is. And then if you have a really good job, maybe provide you some sort of benefits like a health insurance, or maybe even possibly a retirement, something like that. That, in my opinion, is what a job is. And of course, that hasn't been a job for a long time. There's no such thing as that. In other words, what is going on in the world today is, or what's gone on for the last, at least in my lifetime, is that what a job has been an opportunity for somebody to strip you out of an organization. So when you look at the Warren Buffetts of the world, when you look at the hedge fund managers, the George Soroses and these kind of people, the way a lot of these people have made money is by buying companies and then reducing the workforce. Because the biggest liability a company generally has is their employees. So the first thing these billionaire guys want to do, buy a company, strip the workforce, and then sell off whatever is left over, and then whatever they do, ship it to some other place in the world that takes advantage of their citizens by being so poor that they're forced to do almost any kind of labor for literally nothing, just maybe for a mere little, small amounts of food. That's kind of what's been going on in the world today. Is literally, if you go someplace in some countries where people are so poor, if they just have anything at all, they'll work, and they'll work as long and as hard as you want them to work. But in our country, we have standards. So you can't put children to work. You can't, you can only work people so many hours, and so on and so forth. So the idea of a job, the level of a job, the standard is much higher in our country, meaning that the first thing these guys do that have a lot of money is they try to get rid of you, because when they get rid of you, you've saved the money a lot, you've saved the company a lot of money, thus increasing your investment and making this more profitable for you. So get rid of the workers, shell out the workers. As soon as you shell out the workers, then just scavenge the company, salvage the company and take what's left over. And that's how a lot of people have gotten very wealthy in this world. So the reason I'm talking about jobs, I got a training course coming through, is because it's going to get a lot worse before it gets a lot better. I mean, there's never been jobs in my lifetime. I graduated from college in the 1980s. When I left college, there was nobody offering me a job, and there were none to be found. In fact, I remember very vividly moving to Denver, Colorado, taking my resume and walking around the business district and giving my resume to people, and having them look at me like I just fell off the face of the moon. Like, well, who is this guy? And what is this piece of paper? And what do you mean you're looking for a job? I was running around, going door to door hunting for a job, and there was literally nothing happening. And not only that, there would be ads in the paper. I remember Ronald Reagan said this. Oh my gosh, I just look at the news, the want ads in the paper, and there's like page after page after page after page after page after page of people looking for employees. So yeah, I answered some of those ads, and I'll tell you how it went. So generally what it was is you'd show up to some, convention center or hotel ballroom. There'd be 150 people in there. Maybe they look for managers. We're looking for managers. So there'd be 250 people in a room. And of course, you're looking at each other going, "Oh, are they going to hire all of us? I mean, what is this all about?" We're having like some sort of a community interview here. And so generally, the speaker would get up in front of all the people, and they would say something like, "Oh, we need you all. We want you all. Don't anybody leave, because we need every single one of you." Well, and then as they would start to do the pitch, and then take a break, some people would leave, and a few others would leave, and a few others would leave. And by the time the pitch was all over with, most of the people had already left, because they realized all it was a sales commission job. And most of the time, it was some sort of door-to-door deal where you were going to door, you'd sell something, and then you get a little percentage of what it is you sold. So that was the jobs that were in the paper that Ronald Reagan was talking about as job opportunities. There weren't any. They just didn't exist. So that's what it was like in the 1980s, and it hasn't gotten any better. The other thing I would say is that we've been sold a bill of goods as far as the people in this country and as far as around the world, as far as I know. Of course, I've only lived in this country mostly, but you've been sold, a real bill of goods when you've been told that the way you get a job is to go to college and invest years into a university degree, and then when you get that university degree, you're going to be trained to go out in the real world, and somebody's going to pay you money for that. And while you're going to university, get this little free student loan money that you get from the government. We won't charge you any interest while you're going to school, and you won't have to pay it back right away. We'll let you get a job, and then you can start paying it back incrementally. But oh, by the way, you can never get rid of this. This is perpetual debt. This lives with you forever. You will die before this debt goes away, because this debt is hung on you for a lifetime. Because you cannot you cannot bankrupt it, you cannot get rid of it. There's no way to do it. So you literally are sacrificing your future, and of course you're sacrificing your credit, because if you can't pay back your student loans, they're going to ruin your credit. You never buy a car, never buy a house, never buy anything that you have to buy on time, because you've just destroyed your credit by getting a student loan. So they really kind of forced you into this position where you're out of school, there are no jobs, you got to pay back this money. And if you don't pay back this money, we're going to ruin your credit, so you'll never be able to do anything, and literally ruin people for years and years and years and years and years and years and years. Sure, there's deferments and there's all kinds of stuff like that, but the bottom line is they're going to ruin your credit to the point that you'll never be able to do anything if you ever get a student loan, and then go out into the workforce and find out that there's really nothing available. There's nothing out there, no jobs per se, no jobs where you can have a living, that you can have an existence, that you can be married, that you can have children, buy a home, buy a car, so on and so forth. So that idea of a job has been the most, in my opinion, has been the most profane, the most disgusting, the most, the most take advantage of people concept that there is. That you grow up, go to school, get a job, and then somehow somebody's going to take care of you for the rest of your life. And that's not the way it works. And by the time you figure out that that's not the way it's worked, a lot of people are pretty far down the road, and they've invested a lot of years in either a college, spending a lot of money on college, getting massive student loans, or working someplace that they realize that either they get laid off, they get fired, or the company gets bought out, and all these things like that happen. And the reason I'm talking about this tonight is because there's big happenings going on with the UAW, United Auto Workers, and a lot of them are getting ready to walk off. Of course, we saw that not too long ago, and I talked a little bit about it with Yellow Trucking. Yellow Trucking, laid off massive amounts of people, just basically bankrupt. The company went bankrupt, and the workers lost their jobs. Some of these guys, gals, women, spent 20, 30 years working for Yellow Trucking, invested their lives into something that when it was over with, didn't get a penny out of it. And some of them might not even get their whatever they paid into some retirement fund. They might not even get that back. So these ideas that we've been sold, that we've been pawned on as this is the way you live your life. You grow up, you go to school, you get a job, and then this company takes care of you, is nothing but a complete fraud, a complete scam. And if you bought into that and it hasn't worked out for you, I'm sorry, but you're not alone. That's the way the world's working today. The world is working is take advantage of somebody for as long as you can, and then when you get everything you can get out of them, then kick them to the curb, because that's what's happening. That's what's happening a lot. So what's going to happen with the United Auto Workers or the unions and the big auto manufacturers. Probably what's going to happen is they will reach some sort of an agreement, because they're not going to let everybody go. Because if they let everybody go, they're not completely automated, although they will be automated here, and they're working towards it. And every time they have a strike like this, they just work harder on spending more, investing money into being more automated and get rid of employees altogether. So what they do is they probably will try to raise wages and try to meet some of the demands of the worker. But what that's going to cause is it's going to cause more increased costs to everybody that buys an automobile, everybody that that needs transportation. What does that do? Well, that just raises the price of everything. So everything becomes more expensive. So we're in this perpetual state of increased devaluation of the money, where people are not wanting to work, or wanting to work until they get paid something that's reasonable enough for them to live on. And if they don't do that, then they try to live on some sort of minimum dependence as far as the government's concerned, or they don't work at all. And we're in that kind of that time in the world where if this doesn't change quickly, then you're going to see something that we've never seen before, and that's where you can't afford anything. We're literally, because everything becomes so expensive that the average person can't afford the basic needs of life, which is an automobile, which is a home, which is electricity for your home. Forget about any of the extras, like maybe a vacation or something that's that you don't need. You're barely hanging on to what it is that you need just to exist. You're not going to get anything extra. So that's the world we're getting ready to enter. And it's going to happen quickly. And you can see it right now. Like I say, with some of the labor disputes going on with the United Auto Industry, the UAW. So how can you protect yourself from this coming tidal wave of increased expenses, increased costs of everything, increased inputs? Because when things go up in value, when it costs more for the employer to hire the employee wants more money, more wages, because they can't afford what's going on. Everything goes up in costs. So how do you escape that? How can you get around that? What can you do? Because you can only make so much money. Your time, if you're giving your time for money, you only have so much of you to give for so much money, and you can't get any more. You can't make more of yourselves. You can't clone yourself. And I got 20 of myselves going out there. I mean, that's the idea of salesmen. I mean, I can only do so much, so I hire salesmen to help me sell whatever my idea is, my service is. And if I got 20 salesmen running around, I make 20 times as much money as if it's just me by myself. What can you do if you don't have the money to create a sales force or to create some sort of business where you can you can survive this tidal wave of increased expenses, or this increased cost of living, this inflation that we're all dealing with, that we will continue to deal with more and more in the future? Well, one of the things you can do is you can invest, and of course, when you invest, you always are in the position where maybe you invest in something that goes down in value and doesn't go up in value. But a pretty good rule of thumb is to invest in things that are increasing in demand and have less supply. So the supply is diminishing and the demand is increasing. Well, there's one thing that I can think of today that fits that pretty well, that idea pretty well, that formula pretty well, and that is a cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. So we have in the very near future something called the halving. So the halving means that the rewards that the people that mine the Bitcoin, they have to spend electricity, buy the computers, the ASIC computers, the hardware, in order to get Bitcoin for their efforts, for their investment, is going to be cut in half early next year. I think in the April or May next year. I think April next year. That's going to be cut in half. But at the same time, we're going to have an incredible, so the rewards are going to be cut in half. So the returns and everything like that the Bitcoin miners are getting is going to be less. So there's going to be there's going to be less, it's going to drive the price of Bitcoin higher because you're going to have to work twice as hard to earn it, to get it. You have to spend more, invest more money and time because the value what you're making is going to go down. At the same time, you've got people like BlackRock, Larry Fink. You have others out there, the Winklevoss twins, that are trying to get an ETF, and I think there's a number of them, a bunch of them, more than 10, trying to get an ETFs. So now you have demand. You have incredible demand because now people are demanding Bitcoin through their ETFs. If you want to buy into a fund that gives you access to Bitcoin, you have to have some Bitcoin to buy. So that means you got to have supply. You got to have so there's demand and supply. At the same time, the rewards are getting less. It's becoming harder and harder to earn it. You got to work harder and harder to mine it and earn it. So to my mind, one of the solutions to this world that we're living in, where jobs are becoming fewer, they pay less, they give you back less in return, is to put your money in something that can hopefully keep up with all this nonsense. Currencies, devaluation, the buy less. Jobs that give you almost nothing for what you put into it. Working years for companies and not getting anything back for it. One of the things you can do is you can buy Bitcoin. You can buy something. You can buy something that keeps up with this inflation. You can buy something that has a fixed supply. 21 million will ever be mined. You have something that's getting increasingly more rare. Bitcoin mining rewards are going down, and you're getting something that has a tremendous demand. You have people creating funds where people can buy Bitcoin, and of course I've talked about this before. If you buy Bitcoin and hold the Bitcoin yourself, it can be a little tricky. But if you buy Bitcoin in a fund like BlackRock, it's a lot easier, and of course you probably got a little bit more safeties and protections in place. So if you want to get away from this idea of ever increasing costs, jobs that don't give you back what you think you put into or what you put into it in order to exist and survive, start seeding just a little bit of money in Bitcoin. And the other thing is try to figure out a way how to find your, whatever it is that you do well, and however you do it, try to figure out how to do it for yourself and not for somebody else. Because if you do it for somebody else, you're never going to get back much out of it, especially in this world of where people are constantly taking advantage of other people by giving them less and less for their time, their effort, and their labor. So find your niche and put it in Bitcoin. I appreciate you watching. Thank you.